Alright guys, I hope you had a good Tuesday. On Wednesday we're going to do section 13.4. I should be back on Thursday and we'll go over these three sections of homework and probably give you a quiz. Just make sure you can understand it. So make sure you're watching the video, make sure you're practicing, make sure you know what's going on, because after we check our homework on Thursday we'll probably take a little short quiz. Alright, so we will jump right in. You finished Tuesday's lesson solving a quadratic by graphing, and today we're going to solve quadratics by factoring. Okay, all of these are Algebra 1 skills, so they should be somewhat familiar with them. If not, hopefully you'll pick them back up. Now, we factor by the number of terms. So if I'm doing number 1, and really any number of terms, my first thought is GCF. What can I divide out of both terms? So out of both terms, I can divide out a 2 and I can divide out a x. When I do that, what is left? So that would be 3x minus 1 if I divide a 2x from both terms. Now, after you've factored, so our goal is not to factor, our goal is to solve by factoring. So after we've factored, you should set each part equal to 0 and solve for x. Okay, so 2x equals 0, 3x minus 1 equals 0. You got to use your equation solving skills. This would be divided by 2. One of your solutions is 0. This other one, you would add 1 to both sides and divide by 3, and so x will equal 1/3, or point through repeating, and you have your solutions for number 1. Number 2 will do the same thing. Now notice in number 1 that it equals 0 and number 2 doesn't, so the first thing I'm going to do is make number 2 equal 0. So I'm going to bring the 7x over. Okay, and I'm going to take the GCF out, which I can only take an x out on both sides, so x and x minus 7. Once I've factored, I will set each part equal to 0, so you set your x equal to 0, that's an easy solve because it's already solved, and you set your x minus 7 equal to 0, and solve it by adding 7 to both sides, x equals 7. So your solutions for number 2 are 0 and 7, and of course number 1 was 0 and 1/3. Now your other 2 term is a little bit different. It's not a GCF problem. You can see them in problems like 15 and 16. So same kind of thing when we're doing 15 and 16, but we got to make them equal 0. So x minus 64 equals 0. Number 16 is already. These are called difference of squares. Again, should have seen it in Algebra 1. You kind of factor them by memory. Like, what is the square root of x squared? It's x. What is the square root of 64? You can put that in your calculator. It's 8. So the factors are x plus 8 and x minus 8. Now, I guess I'll still put the math in for this one, but all of these are pretty easy to solve. Like if I'm solving x plus 8 equals 0, and if I'm solving x minus 8 equals 0, these are one-step 6th grade solve equations. Like this is going to be x equals negative 8, this is going to be x equals 8, and so your solutions are 8 and negative 8. Same thing with number 16. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of 100 is 10, so x, 10, 10. And then each one of these always has a plus sign and the other one has a minus sign. So if we want to fast track these answers, if I solve x plus 10 for x, I get negative 10. If I solve x minus 10 for x, I get 10. And so my solutions for those are negative 10 and 10. Your other scenario that I want you to practice is a 3-term. Now all of these we want to think GCF, but number 4, and I'm gonna try to keep it easy for you because there is an easier way, and you actually learned it yesterday. So you can check your answers, and I'll show you how to do that as well. But if we're doing number 4 by factoring, now we're always supposed to think GCF, but the way a 3-term factors is you find a multiple of that number, which means like something times something that equals negative 30, and it has to add up to the middle number. Now, negative 30 has all kinds of multiples. We have 30 and 1, we have 10 and 3, we have 6 and 5, we have 15 and 2, and of course one of them has to be negative, and so you have to find a scenario that multiplies to give you negative 30, but when we add it, gives you positive 1. This is your only scenario. Even if I made that a negative, that's still wrong because that doesn't equal to be positive 1. So it has to be a multiple of the last number, has to multiply to get the last number, has to add to get the middle number. So this is x plus 6 and x minus 5. And again, we want to fast track these answers because if I solve that for x, that's just going to be negative 6. If I solve the other one for x, it's going to be 5. If we do the middle one, you might not know your multiples. You might struggle with your multiplication tables. So back in 5th, 4th grade, if you didn't learn them very well, this is hard for you, but it's not hard for you because you don't know Algebra 1. It's because you don't know your multiplication tables. But this one, a multiple of 33 that's going to add up to 14 is 11 times 3. 11 times 3 is 33. 11 plus 3 is 14. So the factors are x plus 11 and x plus 3, and that means the solutions will be negative 11 and negative 3. Now, if you really struggle with this, and I do want you to practice factoring today, if you really struggle with this, you can go back to what you were doing yesterday, and it's the same thing. Now you have to know how to work it backwards. Like one of your Algebra 2 standards talks about knowing the difference in factors and solutions. So like for number 5, my factors are x plus 11, x plus 3. My solutions are negative 11 and negative 3. So you got to know the difference. You got to know how to correlate them. So what I just did was solving by factoring. My goal here is still the solutions, and again, I want you to practice this because I could take your calculator away and force you to do it by factoring. So I do want you to practice this, especially since it's just homework, because if you don't have a calculator, you can't do these by graphing. But I'll show you how we get the same answer. So this is what you were doing yesterday. You put it in y equals, we go to the table, and we just start searching for where y is 0. Oh look, one of my solutions is at negative 3 because that's the solution. So when you use your calculator, it does give you straight to the solutions. But again, I want you to practice factoring them. And again, I'm keeping you only do making you only do the easier ones, to be honest. Again, if you really struggle, use your calculator or check your answer using your calculator. Technically, I should be making you do problems like these, and these are a little more difficult, and we may talk about them when I come back, but as far as me not being there, this is enough. So we'll keep this video short, only one section day. Again, when I come back, we will go over all this, probably have a quiz. Of course, you're gonna practice this today, and you can check your homework assignment in Canvas. And like I said, plan on being back tomorrow. Hope you have a good day. See you later.